mother of five was brutally murdered in 1985. 2 decades later, justice came knocking for the trio who is responsible. In June 1985, 40-year-old mother of five, Ada Senenfelder, was found dead in her Winona, Minnesota apartment. She was spotted through the window by a curious neighbor who told another neighbor who called the authorities. The first neighbor said that he and his wife noted that Ada's TV had been on all night, which they thought was strange. So he peered through the front room window. The room was reportedly full of beds, and he could see the body wedged in between one of them and a wall. Word of the crime spread as the police officers and the investigators swarmed the neighborhood on the 500 block of East 4th Street. Yellow ribbon was hastily strung across the yard around the house, and a Bureau of Criminal Apprehension team was on its way. According to news accounts from the time, more than 100 people gathered along the sidewalks to watch as the investigation stretched late into the night. All the police said at the time was that Ada's cause of death was not from natural causes. This shocked the Winona community. The next morning, an autopsy revealed that she had sustained over 30 stab wounds, including a fatal wound to the heart with injuries on her face, neck, arms, and torso. A kitchen knife was found in the home that they suspect was the weapon used in the crime. They also found blood smears on a door inside the house. There were no signs of forced entry, and the investigators turned their attention to virtually everyone who knew the victim, who family members said had no known enemies. Ada's second husband, John Senenfelder, was serving a 54-month sentence in prison for first-degree criminal conduct at the time of the crime. Her first husband, Casimir Fleck, was dead. Her 5 children, 3 with her first husband and 2 with her second, were said to be from 6 to 16 years old, and all were living in foster homes. Although Ada still owned the home on East 4th Street where she was found, she was reportedly living on and off with a man named Clyde Duane, Bobby, Fort on Wilson Street several months before the crime. Fort had been arrested and put in jail for unrelated crimes at the time. The police followed numerous leads and sifted through mountains of evidence, even garbage from the neighborhood, looking for clues to the criminal's identity. But after developing strong suspects and questioning more than 100 people about the crime, the case soon grew cold as concrete evidence eluded investigators. Evidence found at the scene suggested that multiple attackers were involved, but unfortunately, the case went cold. In 2006, the cold case was reopened by the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension's Cold Case Unit. A $50,000 reward was offered, and DNA evidence from the crime scene was reanalyzed. DNA extracted from cigarette butts found in Ada's home led the investigators to Niusulski. In the summer of 1985, prior to her death, Ada had reported to the authorities that James Raymond Bolstead had inappropriately assaulted her daughter. Bolstead was arrested for violating his probation. He was angry. He told his girlfriend, Linda Mae Parrish, that she must take care of things and get Ada to take back her statement. Parrish had a friend, John Willis Niusulski, that moved in the same party circles as her. She asked him to help her take care of Ada. The two began harassing Ada. They broke into her apartment multiple times. They stole her personal belongings. They did what they could to intimidate her into taking back her statement to police. Eventually, it worked. Ada told Bolstead's probation officer that she had lied about the inappropriate assault allegations, while Niusulski taped the so-called confession from the next room. On June 5, 1985, Bolstead, while still in jail, calls his girlfriend. He angrily informs her that Ada's taking back her statement was not sufficient and he would remain jailed. Parrish, present at a party that evening, relays a message urging Bolstead's friends to go further with Ada. She was overheard telling partygoers that she would pay someone to end Ada's life. Following that call, Niusulski and possibly others left the party and ended the life of Ada in her bedroom. On July 3, 2008, a grand jury charged the 3 individuals. John Willis Niusulski for murder, Linda Mae Parrish for first-degree murder that was later reduced to manslaughter, and James Raymond Bolstead. One witness testified at trial that they had seen Niusulski the night of the incident with a bloodied hand wrapped in a white towel. That same witness testified that they lived in the same apartment as Ada at the time. That night, Niusulski knocked on her door and asked for a flashlight because he had lost a knife. Another witness testified that Niusulski and Parrish paid them to help clean Parrish's apartment with ammonia and bleach the day Ada's body was found. Others who testified claimed that Parrish told everyone who attended the party to deny that anyone left the party early. A number of other witnesses testified that over the years, Nieuwsolski had confessed to ending the life of Ada because she was a snitch. Parrish pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit first-degree manslaughter and agreed to testify against the others. She was released after serving approximately 21 months, credited for time already served. In July 2009, Nieuwsolski pleaded not guilty and was convicted on 4 charges related to the case first-degree premeditated murder, murder in the first degree while witness tampering, and 2 counts of aiding and abetting first-degree murder. He received a life sentence with a minimum of 14 years before parole eligibility. In December 2009, Bolstad pleaded guilty to obstructing an investigation. He was sentenced to about 58 months, but was released immediately, having already served sufficient time in custody for unrelated charges. On March 21, 2024, the Minnesota Supreme Court denied Nieuwsolski's appeal, upholding the verdict against him. 2 girls that went missing in 2002 while on their way to the school bus stop were found right under the noses of the detectives working their cases. On January 9, 2002, just after 8:00 a.m., 12-year-old Ashley Pond was running late for school. Ashley lived with her mother, Lori Pond, at the Newell Creek Village Apartments in Oregon City, Oregon. The apartment was just 10 minutes away from the bus stop, and while walking to the bus stop, she disappeared. She never got on the bus and never made it to Gardner Middle School. Despite the efforts of the local authorities and the FBI, no clues surfaced as to the whereabouts of the missing girl. Ashley was popular at school and enjoyed being on the swim and dance teams. Neither her mother, friends, nor the investigators believed that she had run away. 2 months later, on March 8, 13-year-old Miranda Gaddis, Ashley's friend and neighbor, vanished in the same manner on her way to that very same bus stop. Miranda's mother, Michelle Duffy, had left for work about 30 minutes before Miranda was to catch the bus. When Michelle discovered that Miranda had not been at school, she immediately contacted the police, but once again, the investigators came up empty. The authorities concluded that the cases are likely connected, suspecting they were abducted by someone known in the community due to the lack of physical evidence or struggle. It seemed that whoever the criminal was, he or she seemed to be targeting the same type of girl. Ashley and Miranda were close in age, involved in similar activities, looked remarkably similar to each other, and most importantly, both girls disappeared on their way to the bus stop. Shortly after Ashley and Miranda disappeared, Ward Weaver III became a prime suspect in the investigation, but it took the FBI 8 months to get a search warrant to search his property. On August 13th, Weaver's son, Francis, contacted 911 to report that his father had attempted to inappropriately assault his 19-year-old girlfriend. The girlfriend, who ran naked from the Weaver house, told the police that Weaver inappropriately assaulted her and then tried to smother her. Francis also told the dispatcher that his father confessed to ending the lives of Ashley and Miranda. Both of the girls were friends with Weaver's 12-year-old daughter and had visited her at Weaver's home. Weaver's daughter was in the same dance class as the 2 girls. Ashley was often at the Weaver house as a house guest. She also went along with the family the previous year on a vacation to California. The trip included a visit to Weaver's dad, a death row inmate who once buried a murder victim in his own yard. Weaver was arrested on unrelated charges, prompting law enforcement to seek a warrant to search his property. On August 24th, FBI agents searched Weaver's home and found the remains of Miranda inside a box in the storage shed. The following day, they found the remains of Ashley buried under a slab of concrete that Weaver had recently put down for a hot tub. The 39-year-old toolmaker had a history of violence against women. An autopsy was conducted to confirm the identification of both girls' remains. Late summer 2002, a public memorial was held for the 2 girls. On October 2nd, Weaver was charged with 16 counts consisting of aggravated murder, abuse of a corpse, and inappropriate assault. In September 2004, Weaver pleaded guilty to all charges, entering a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. He received 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. Relatives of the 2 girls said that they were frustrated and devastated to learn that the bodies were right there in the neighborhood all along. These crimes are not the first pain and suffering to have come into the lives of the 2 families. Both girls were inappropriately abused, Ashley by her father, who got probation after pleading guilty to the crime, and Miranda by a former boyfriend of her mother's, who was sentenced to 75 months in jail. This is also not Weaver's first brush with the law. Besides the case of his son's girlfriend, he served 3 years in prison for striking his son's babysitter with a chunk of cement. Both of his ex-wives have accused him of violence, and in 2001, Ashley accused him of molesting her, an allegation Weaver denied and did not result in any formal charges being filed. Some people have wondered why it took so long for the police to search the Weaver property, especially since he knew both girls well, had previously been accused of inappropriately abusing Ashley, and was questioned by the police early in the investigation. Christy Sloan, an ex-wife of Weaver, said that she told the police back then everything they need to know. She told them about the cement that was poured in his backyard 3 days after Miranda went missing. At least both girls and their family could see justice being served. Love turned fatal and guilt traveled decades before giving way to confession when the criminal turned himself in. 41-year-old mother of 3, Janet Jones Luxford left her home in Florida in February 2001 to meet up with Brian Jones, a truck driver, at a Jacksonville hotel where she worked. They traveled to Bessemer, Alabama together. Janet never returned home, and in 2002, one of her daughters reported her missing. Despite all efforts, no trace of Janet was found and the case grew cold. 21 years after she disappeared, on March 27, 2022, the man responsible for her death took a bus from South Carolina to Alabama, where he sat outside of the police station in Bessemer until he finally got the nerve to walk into the station and turn himself in. Brian Jones told them that he was working as a day laborer and that he and Janet were in a relationship. She wanted to get money to go back to her hometown, which is California, to see her parents. And from that, an argument started. He described that it got out of hand and he ended up hitting her with a club in the throat. He said that her death was accidental and that it happened at a motel in the 1100 block of 9th Avenue Southwest in Bessemer. The next day, on March 28, Jones led the police to the place where he dumped Janet's body back in 2001. There they found a green suitcase filled with skeletal remains. The Jefferson County Coroner's Office used medical records and DNA to help identify the remains. Janet's disappearance is not a case that was on the investigators' radar. It is something that he committed 21 years ago, and nobody knew that it happened besides him. In May 2022, Jones has been charged with murder and abuse of a corpse. He was taken to the Jefferson County Jail and was being held on a $765,000 bond. On October 7, 2024, he pleaded guilty to ending the life of Janet. As part of the plea deal, the abuse of a corpse charge has been dropped. He was sentenced to 21 years in prison, 1 year for each year Janet was missing. As for why Jones waited so long to confess to the crime, he explained to the Bessemer police that he did not want to disappoint his parents. His parents passed away in 2021. Bessemer Police Lieutenant Christian Clements said he seemed enormously remorseful and appeared to be someone who had been carrying the weight of this around for a long time and was relieved to have it over. Lieutenant Clements described this case as a once-in-a-career type of situation. Janet's daughter, Amanda Luxford Fernandez, said she just disappeared off the face of the earth and there were no answers. She said that her mother's disappearance haunted her and her 2 siblings. The only silver lining, she said, is knowing her mother did not purposely stay away for 21 years. She added, "We are happy we are getting answers, but we are also going to get some justice." A family of 5 was taken away from this world in a crime that shocked Australia in 2009. The criminal has been identified and convicted, but he still to this day says he is innocent. In the early hours of July 18, 2009, in North Epping, Sydney, 5 family members, 45-year-old Min, his wife, 43-year-old Jen Lee, Lily Lynn, their sons, 12-year-old Henry and 9-year-old Terry, and Lily's sister, 39-year-old Irene Lynn, were found bludgeoned to death in their home. The only immediate family survivor is 15-year-old Brenda Lynn, who was on a school trip at the time of the attack. Min was a newsagent proprietor. When the news agency that was run by the Lynn family was not open, Min's sister Kathy and her husband, Lion bin Robert Zai, went to check on them at around 9:00 a.m. After entering the house via the unlocked front door, they discovered the horrifying scene. The bodies had been bashed so badly that they were almost beyond recognition. Kathy immediately called for an ambulance, but she struggled to explain the situation. Robert left Kathy at the house waiting for the police to pick up Min and Kathy's parents, who lived in Marsfield. The police and the paramedics quickly arrived at the scene, but the victims were pronounced dead. At the crime scene, the investigators noted heavy blood spatter from floor to ceiling. Because the victims' faces were so disfigured, forensic analysis had to be used to identify them. There was no evidence of a break-in, suggesting the criminal used a key. Nothing had been ransacked or stolen. It was clear that the criminal had known the layout of the house, the location of the circuit breaker, and the fact that Brenda Lynn was not home, as it appeared that the attacker did not enter her room. Forensic analysts also determined that the attacks had been started with a hammer-like object. 4 of the 5 victims had additional signs of asphyxia. There were 24 bloody shoe prints that were also evident, determined to be around US size 812 to 1012, indicating a lone attacker. On July 29, Kathy and Robert made a public appeal for information about the crimes. A large public family funeral was held for the Lynn family on August 8. Brenda was on a Year 10 French school trip in New Caledonia with Cheltenham Girls High School at the time and learned of her family's case via Facebook. After the crimes, Robert and Kathy became her legal guardians and they resumed operation of the newsagent business. Brenda later alleged that she was abused by Robert during this period. In May 2010, Kathy was interviewed by the New South Wales Crime Commission, where she was told that the police found shoe prints from an Asics sneaker at the Lynn family home. On police surveillance footage, Robert was captured cutting up and disposing of shoe boxes. The police forensic officers found a blood stain in his garage. The blood sample was tested, and it contained DNA of 4 of the 5 victims. He was arrested on May 5, 2011, and he was charged with 5 counts of murder. The police told the media that he emerged as their prime suspect about 6 months after the incident. On December 22, Robert's bail application was unsuccessful, and he remained behind bars. He applied for bail again in the New South Wales Supreme Court on March 29, 2012. 4 trials took place between the years 2011 and 2016. The first 2 ended in hung juries before Robert was finally found guilty by a majority verdict in January 2017. In 2021, he appealed his conviction in the New South Wales Court of Appeal. His convictions and life sentences were upheld. During the trial, the court heard that he resented Min because he was perceived as the better businessman within the extended family. Robert remains incarcerated, serving 5 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. It was reported in May 2024 that Brenda Lynn is an advocate for survivors of inappropriate abuse. Since 2021, she had helped to establish a network of 12 meetup hubs, the Survivor Network in Australia, to assist other victims in their recovery process. The body of a girl was found in a wooded area in Manhattan, New York in 1991. She was finally identified after 22 years, and the person responsible for the horrific crime has been identified. On July 23, 1991, the decomposing body of a little girl was found inside a navy blue cooler along the Henry Hudson Parkway in Manhattan, New York. Her little body was naked, and she had been bound with rope and Venetian blind cord. She was placed in the fetal position with her hands pressed together. She was then wrapped in a garbage bag before she was placed in the cooler that was filled with soda cans. Due to the decomposed state of the body, identifying the little girl was impossible at first, so she became known as Baby Hope. The medical examiners concluded that Baby Hope was possibly Hispanic and had dark wavy hair that was in a ponytail. Her body was also extremely malnourished, and she weighed only 28 pounds or 13 kilograms. They believed that she was between the ages of 3 and 5. Baby Hope was also a victim of inappropriate abuse. The medical examiners believed that she lost her life around July 18th. According to an eyewitness, a Hispanic man and woman were seen carrying a cooler in the location where Baby Hope's body was found. A few months later, in the autumn of 1991, some suggestive images of a nude child were located in New Jersey, which some believed might have been Baby Hope. As the girl in the photographs matched the victim's description, she was buried in 1993 with funds provided by the police. 200 people attended her funeral. In 2006 and 2011, Baby Hope's body was exhumed to obtain DNA samples. The case was reopened in 2013. The tip that broke the case came from an anonymous woman who told the authorities that she had overheard a conversation 2 years prior between a mother and another person regarding the disappearance of her daughter. On the 22nd anniversary of the girl's death, the detectives canvassed the area near where she was found in the Bronx, asking for information about her identity and the circumstances leading to her death. The police passed out flyers and announced a $12,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. This information led the investigators to Margarita Castillo. DNA was collected and tested and came back a match. She was the mother of baby Hope, who could finally be identified as Anjelica Castillo. Anjelica was one of 3 children. Her father, Juanado Ramirez, was an abusive man. Juanado had taken 2 of his 3 children and disappeared. Anjelica's mother believed that he took Anjelica and her sister and returned to Mexico. But instead, he left Anjelica in New York with her adult female cousin, Balvina Juarez Ramirez, who lived in Queens. Balvina's brother, Conrado Juarez, who was 30 at the time of the alleged crime, said that he went to the apartment in Queens shared by 7 of his relatives, and he saw Anjelica in the hallway. After a long interrogation, Juarez eventually confessed on videotape that he inappropriately assaulted and smothered Anjelica, then disposed of her body in the cooler. When the girl went motionless, he summoned his sister from another room. It was she who told him to get rid of the body and who provided the cooler. Juarez then folded the girl in half, tied her, and placed her in a garbage bag inside the cooler. Juarez and his sister hailed a cab to Manhattan, dropped the cooler off in a wooded area near the Parkway, then went their separate ways. The confession was the main evidence against him, and his lawyer, Mr. Kroos, argued that it was coerced. By the time of 52-year-old Juarez's arrest in October 2013, his sister had passed away. As Anjelica's mother believed that she was in Mexico with her father, she never reported her missing. Juarez had waited for his trial for 5 years. In 2015, he was transferred from Rikers Island to Rockland County Correctional Facility for his own safety. He passed away in 2018 at Montefiore Nyack Hospital following complications related to pancreatic cancer.